establishes the rules for compliance and enforcement. Rules without visibility are merely suggestions, so they need to be enforced. As people, naturally, there are certain things which, if we are just told, we will not do, but we need some kind of oversight, enforcement, and then we do it. That is how we are wired as human beings. Okay? Now, there are 4 pillars of accountability. Number 1 are these records. If you are handling chemicals, and when I say handling, you may be an industry using them, you may be a transporter transporting them, you may be a person with a store storing them. So that entire life cycle of chemicals, you must keep daily records. Regulation 51 says you must keep daily records. If you are just storing how many liters, how many kilograms, how many bags are in that store today, tomorrow, next week, and so on and so forth. If you are a manufacturer, how much did you produce today? How much will you produce tomorrow? That has to be recorded somewhere. That is critical. Regulation 52 requires all those in that business to submit an annual report to Nema. So if you are not keeping these daily records, what is going to make up your annual report? So the annual report you submit to Nema. These daily records you keep on site. When the inspectors come, they will ask to see these daily records. The annual report you submit to Nema at the end of every year. And know that under this regulation, Nema can come and take samples. So you cannot say, that one don't touch, you have to buy. No. But also the sample that Nema is taking should not be, they should not carry away one bag. All they need is like 50 grams of the material, or 100 milliliters of the material if it is liquid. They should not come and take a whole drum and say this is a sample. That is not necessary in this area. And then Regulation 54, it guides Nema on how they will be undertaking the monitoring and inspection on a daily basis. So those are the pillars, the 4 pillars of accountability. Too far away. Okay. So the pillar 1, we have already talked about it. Daily records. Okay? Every drop, every gram, every canister of hazardous chemicals must be known, documented, and traceable. If you had an accident and 20 liters poured, you need to record that. We had an accident, 20 liters poured. If your supplier, you ordered for 100 bags, and they only delivered 99 bags, you need to report that. Okay? This protects you from the liability and ensures that rapid response capabilities during an emergency. So that if there is an issue, an accident, then those who are coming to sort out the issue will know the extent of the problem they are dealing with. Are we dealing with 100 liters of inflammable liquid, or we are dealing with 1,000 liters? the response is different. Okay? So, chain of custody is important. Need to keep operating records. If you have an accident, make sure you have reports, you log these accidents, document these accidents, and of course, medical records for the people we are employing is a requirement. Okay. Yesterday we saw that the National Environment Act singles out these very, very hazardous chemicals on top of the general statement of hazardous chemicals, but these ones are singled out. And so we have labeled them ultra hazardous elements. For these ones, end-to-end user traceability is a must. Okay? End-to-end, strict record keeping is a must. With respect to records, you are expected to keep records for as far back as 10 years. So we are in 2026. An inspector from Nema can come and ask to see your records of 2016. Yes, you are welcome, sir. So you have to keep records of 10 years. They have to be there and accessible. Okay? These records must be made available to Nema, a lead agency, or an authorized officer upon immediate request. These authorized officers include many of you who have been designated as environmental inspectors. Okay? So 10 years, you need to keep records for that long. You do not say that 5 years, I don't have. So this has to be very clear moving forward. Pillar 2, we saw that it relates to the annual submission of records. We shall not spend much time on it. We now understand that we have to submit annual records, and the record reporting follows the calendar year. That is January to December. So you report the data, the information that covers the period January to December. And this report should reach Nema before 31st of January the following year. Before 31st of January of the following year. So the report for 2026 must be submitted sometime in January 2027. If it crosses 31st January 2027, you are late. Nema may fine you, or withdraw your license, or suspend your license, depending. Okay? So before the 31st of January each year, every licensed facility shall submit their annual report to the authority. This requirement is also in the Act, the National Environment Act. Now, yesterday we saw that sometimes if the chemicals being handled are really horrible, dangerous chemicals, Nema in licensing you can even tell you, we want you to submit to us monthly reports. or quarterly reports. So depending on the risk, then Nema can ask more frequent reports from you. What is in the annual report? What kind of information is in the annual report? Everything related to the chemical, the inventory of that chemical. Starting with its type, its name, the CAS number is a special number given to each chemical, has a special number. The properties of chemicals, imported, manufactured, or repackaged. Volume tracking is important. So amounts you have stored during the year. On 31st January and 31st December, so that a mass balance can be undertaken. If these are discharges or emissions, they must be reported. But also any health and safety measures deployed against exposures. You also report any accidents or near misses. An accident nearly happened, it needs to be recorded and reported. So as I indicated to you, the guidelines and these regulations, they give you a template. So you don't have to do much work, you just fill in the template. And then that should be good. And I think eventually this is going to be an online system, so that you don't have to submit hard copies. You just log in online to Nema, you have a special login, you access the reporting tab, go to open the template, then fill in your data. And then press send, and it goes. So that is what the. And once Nema gets all this information, it will be able to map out where all these chemicals are in the country. Okay? It will be able to map out and say, come up with a map that shows exactly where all these hazardous chemicals are. And this will now help in planning. Where does Nema have to focus its resources? Where does it have to open a chemicals office? If a lot of the chemicals are in the Hoima region because of the oil, then Nema will say, okay, we need a chemicals office here. Because all this information, to be able to map it, comes from the reports that you are submitting. Because you are telling Nema what chemical it is, the risks, the amounts, the locations. So it's very easy to come up with a chemicals map that shows where all these things are in the country, and then able to plan appropriately. We have also seen that Nema can pick samples, because Regulation 53 ideally operates on the premise that there is trust in the records that you submit, but there is need for them to scientifically verify. Not 100%, but depending on where the high risks are, it will once in a while ask for a sample from here, a sample from there. Especially if you are new, you are not a regular, then samples may be picked and analyzed by Nema in designated laboratories. Now, as people who are handling chemicals, you have an industry factory somewhere. You also have a responsibility for undertaking your own monitoring. Okay? If you are releasing emissions into the air, you need to know what you are releasing into the air, because you have to report on that. So when you are given the license, Nema will clearly indicate to you the kind of monitoring you have to undertake. If it's emissions monitoring, stack monitoring, you have to install stack monitoring units on that thing. So as a user or a handler of chemicals, monitoring is not only for Nema, but you who is handling those chemicals, you also have to monitor. Okay? That is important. This is really about the samples. We have already talked about the samples. There are various types of samples, but I'm not going to that. Only to say that environmental inspectors are empowered to take independent samples of any chemicals or articles containing hazardous chemicals directly from the facility. But like I said, the sample should not be exaggerated. With chemicals, you just need small amounts, maximum 10 grams if it is solid. If it is liquid, maximum 50 or 100 milliliters. So the inspector should not say, I'm taking 2 grams. Okay? And when Nema takes these chemicals, they have to be analyzed in a laboratory that is very, very competent. Because the result of that analysis is going to determine your fate, whether the license is withdrawn or revoked or denied, if it is a case of application. And so the regulation requires that the samples go to a laboratory that is internationally recognized under a standard, this ISO standard. An internationally recognized laboratory means it's a laboratory that is subjected to assessment by an external independent body, and is also involved in what we call proficiency testing and interlaboratory testing schemes, meaning the laboratory does exams every year. An independent party gives the laboratory a sample, an unknown sample, say analyze this, tell us what is in it 100%. So the laboratory analyzes and submits a report saying, we have analyzed, this is what this substance is, these are the chemicals in this substance. So that independent entity now checks, because it knows what is in the sample. If you have analyzed it properly, it gives you a tick, and you now remain an accredited, internationally accredited laboratory. If you don't analyze it, if you don't find everything that independent entity put in that unknown sample, then they remove the accreditation, and you are not an internationally recognized body. So these samples that Nema takes, it doesn't take just to any laboratory. It takes to a laboratory that is ISO 17025 accredited. Because the decision Nema is going to make is going to be based on the decision of the results of the analysis that has been undertaken. Okay? And then the fourth pillar we saw relates to enforcement. Enforcement is the regulation 54 defines the rights of Nema and lead agencies to conduct regular inspections and real-time monitoring of chemical facilities and transit routes for cases where they have licensed transportation and such. going too far. So when inspectors come to inspect you, they are looking at three main areas. Okay? How are you compliant with the regulations? The requirements of the regulations, which are really translated into conditions of your license. So once you get the license, that's not the end of the story. The license will have conditions that you need to be aware of and keep checking that you are fulfilling those conditions. Okay? The inspector will also look at how ready you are to handle any emergency situations. What safety measures are there physically in place to minimize the consequences of any potential accident? If you have chemicals in a store, have you segregated those incompatible chemicals? Are the chemicals labeled anyway? We saw the labeling yesterday. Are they labeled? Is there banding around the tanks that hold chemicals? What kind of floor? Yesterday we saw the kind of floor that must be in a chemical facility. So all that information. And they will also confirm the data you have been providing to them in either your annual or more regular reports. Okay? So the enforcement is not limited to the environs of the industry, but also beyond. Because remember we said, even the transporters, they are licensed. The ones who dispose, they are licensed. So the Nema inspectors will even reach the disposal sites, will monitor the transportation routes. Remember we said if it is on water, extra special precautions on that one. They have to have strict electronic cargo tracking systems. Delayed. Oh. So, in summary, regulations 51 through 54 relate to records, provision of the raw data, the daily raw data that you keep that fits into the annual reporting, samples, important, and then the inspection that must be undertaken. So compliance that is undertaken actually serves as the ultimate protection against any catastrophic accident that may happen. It's not about getting you in trouble, but to ensure that your operations are safe. Failing to maintain these pillars results in a number of penalties. You can be closed, and what we don't want may happen. The environment may be damaged, let alone human lives lost. We saw on day one the Constitution, what it guarantees. A right of everyone to a clean and healthy environment. So if chemicals are not managed, that right is being infringed upon. Okay? As I go to the next slide, any questions so far? None? It's 10:15. Okay. This is the last slide, and then we shall go to the schedules of the regulation, so that we gain a better understanding. This 1.5 days, I don't expect you to thoroughly have it in your head. Impossible. But my hope is that you have a reasonably fair understanding what it's about. So now when you go to the copies that you will get and you open and you are reading them, it will all make sense. It will be easier to understand the regulation. That is the idea. This area of industrial chemicals is now going to be regulated, because as we discussed yesterday, we realized it is an area where nothing is happening. Agrochemicals, something is happening. Initial agriculture is licensing. When you are importing, they clear you. Public health chemicals, something is happening. NDA is there. DDT, things like that, NDA and Ministry of Health. But we saw that industrial chemicals, if you are importing toluene, after paying taxes, there's nothing, there's no one to ensure you are not mismanaging it. So, the era of unregulated chemical management is now going to go away. Because of these regulations that have come in now. And they look at the entire life cycle of chemicals. Okay? This means, what does this mean? Is that enforcement is going to start happening. Nema will talk about the timelines when enforcement is going to start happening. But before it starts happening, we are going to have a lot of engagements from leader. The other day we were in Barara on the same. We'll probably go to Bali, maybe do Arua. I don't know whether Arua people are here, but I think Arua is special. We do Hoima, and so that ignorance is no longer a defense. Okay? At the end of the day, if you don't comply, you are going to get out of business, because we saw how dangerous these chemicals are. So, the regulations give Nema a lot of power under Regulation 56. Nema has a lot of power to intervene in your operations, because we want to assure safety for the people and the environment. Okay? So even before Nema takes you to court, there are certain things it has the power to do. We call them administrative measures. So they have the mandate to bypass the standard delays and directly halt non-compliant operations. So they do not have to go to court to tell you to stop. Because these chemicals we have seen, time leads to death. Okay? Okay. So, this is the power Nema has to stop operations and close you. Immediate shutdown if you are failing to comply with the license conditions. It can seize your property, can seize your trucks, can seize your equipment, etc., or even substances. Okay? It can order immediate removal of hazardous chemicals at your own expenses in cases of spillage or acute risk. And that is why yesterday we saw one of the things before you are given a license, Nema wants to know, do you have money? Do you have a bank guarantee? Can your bank stand for you? Because when an accident happens, Nema will ask you to immediately address that problem. And that requires you having money. So that is one of the reasons when we are looking at the licensing. One of the conditions is a bank guarantee from your bank to indicate that you have some money, you are not broke if something happens. The fines that the regulation provide for are calculated as currency points. This is how our regulatory framework in Uganda, the fines framework is. So when you are given a fine, you will be told, we are fining you 5 currency points. Then you know that is 100,000. 20,000 times 5. Because 1 currency point is 20,000. I don't know why the legal people decided this, but all our laws, the fines are spoken about in terms of currency points. Maybe the money will look too big, as we shall see in the next slide, I think. Yes. You may not see, but this is 1 billion. So if you are a corporate company, a corporate body, registered, or you do not keep those chemical records I was telling you about, you face a maximum penalty of 50,000 currency points, which translates to 1 billion Uganda shillings. Maybe only Coca-Cola can pay this. That's why yesterday I was saying, if you are going into the business of chemicals, make sure you have money and you follow the rules. Okay? So, the penalty is very stiff, as you can see. Even just failing to provide these records, the judge can ask you to pay 1 billion Uganda shillings. At the individual level, prison sentence is coming. You are sent to prison. So you cannot say that, me, I'm just a chief executive officer. You should only just find the company and that will be enough. No. As the CEO, as the manager, as the staff who was on duty who allowed that tank to overflow, apart from the fine to the company, they may take you, the individual, to prison. If it is your first offense, apart from paying a fine of about 200 million, you can go to prison for 7 years. 7. If it is a subsequent offense, this is not clear, but this is subsequent offense, fines of up to 10,000 currency points, which is 200 million Uganda shillings, and you can spend up to 10 years in prison. So if you find the judge has woken up on the wrong side of the bed, Instead of giving you 7 years, if it is the second time he's seeing you in front of him, he will say 10 years. And you also pay 200 million. So the penalties are very, very, very stiff. But we know why they are very stiff. You just have to take a visit to Molago Cancer Ward and see the problem there. But also, if Nema has given you a timeline to be compliant, say we give you 3 weeks or 2 months to be compliant, and then you are not compliant at the end of that time, for each additional day you are non-compliant, your penalties increase exponentially. Regulation 55 penalizes every single day you remain non-compliant. Okay? This is reading continuing offense fine is 2,000 currency points per. No mathematician here. 2,000 times 20,000, 40 million per day of being non-compliant. So that goes back to why, when they're giving you the license, they want to know, do you have money? Because if Nema says, clean this up within 2 weeks, the clock starts ticking. So you better have money to do the cleanup. Because after the 2 weeks, every million you are paying us just a fine. You have not cleaned up. Yes. The cleanup costs are very important. Okay? So, within 30 days, if you haven't complied within 30 days, you will be paying, this is 1.28 billion. It's not clear, but it's 1.2 billion. Within a month, if you are not compliant for 30 days, 1.2 billion in fines. And this is exclusive of the corporate penalty, which we saw was 1 billion. And a few administrative charges, which are substantial. So every day you delay to pay, to clean up, this is the cost of inaction. That is why Nema, before giving you the license, is telling you, do you have money in case something goes wrong? And that is why, if you want to be in this business, don't go when you don't have money. Or if you go when you don't have money, make sure you follow the rules to the letter. Daily records, annual submissions, interventions, mitigation measures, and all that. Okay? So when Nema decides on when it is going to start enforcing, it will communicate an amount of time to allow all of you to align your operations. This time may be 12 months, it may be more. But what Nema wants to do first is to sensitize all of you so that you understand. And then when you understand, if you are in that business and you realize this is not for me, you can sell the business or close it. So that, but international best practice, before such regulations are enforced, normally they give people 12 months. But that is not to say that if you are really releasing chemicals directly to the river, that Nema will wait for 12 months. No. This really relates to more the administrative things, to get your license and that kind of thing. But if you are actually discharging hazardous chemicals, Nema will close you immediately. Immediately. It will not wait for those 12 months. So as you prepare, what are the steps you go through? Number one, you make sure that all your chemicals are properly classified and labeled. We saw this yesterday, the globally harmonized system of labeling. I also told you yesterday that these regulations have guidelines that have been developed to guide you further on how to implement this section of the regulation. Those guidelines are ready, and I'm hoping Nema can also share them so that by the time it comes to enforcement, you know how to classify and label. Register. Yesterday we agreed, and we talked about this. The baseline register will be done by Nema. So I don't expect any individual entity to be applied for registration. It is only after the baseline register is in place, if you're bringing a chemical that is not in the register, if you're bringing it into the country, or if you want to manufacture it here, then you need to apply to register the chemical. But chances of that are very low. Licensing is what everybody needs. Processing a license for whatever operation you're undertaking in respect of chemicals. Entire life cycle, I told you, from manufacture, importation, transportation, storage, repackaging, you need a license. Failure to complete all these 3 stages before the deadline will lead to that enforcement. That amount of money we are seeing, closure, prison terms, and that kind of thing. So when you are classifying, you need to look at the chemicals you have in place. They must be immediately classified into one of 3 groups. We saw these groups yesterday. Based on whether they present a physical hazard, we saw that some chemicals can explode, can catch fire, that creates a physical harm to somebody, or they can affect the health of the person. You may get cancer, it may be mutagenic, it changes your genes, or it may affect the environment. Safety data sheet. And I told you these are readily available. You just need the internet, you Google, chemical name, safety data sheet, it will bring it. Print them out, put them in a file that you put in the store of the chemicals. So that's one of the first things the inspector will ask when they come to inspect you. Can I see the safety data sheets of the chemicals you have? And you have it on file. Step 2 is the registration, which probably will not impact you at this stage, because this is something Nema has to get the baseline as we start. So that's not for you. And then step 3 is to apply for a license, because you are dealing in this chemical. So you cannot legally interact with these chemicals without explicit authorization. This authorization is in the form of a license given to you by Nema. So you must apply for it and obtain that license, I told you, throughout the life cycle of the chemical. If you are importing it, you may be exporting it, you may be manufacturing it, formulating, repackaging, storing, using, industrial use. And most of these would require some kind of risk assessment to be undertaken. You would expect to be inspected by Nema. And as I told you, you need to demonstrate that you have money, either through a bank guarantee or insurance. So the time is up. If within the time frame that Nema announces, and Nema will announce this time frame when the sensitization is over. And after that time frame elapses, if it is 12 months, the grace period, then if you fail to transition, then you have committed an offense. And the penalty for contravening this specific transition timeline, they have given you 12 months to label all your chemicals. And after 12 months, the inspector comes and there is a full store of chemicals that are not labeled. Then you could be fined 100 million shillings and 2 years in prison, which is a very steep penalty. The clock hasn't started ticking, but anytime Nema I will start this clock, as I said, and we shouldn't wait for enforcement. Those who have chemicals, please start labeling them and following what the regulations and the guidelines are talking about. Any questions? I hope I've not scared you. But you have to balance. You go to Morado and see what is there. Even lecture there. Good. People are really, cancer is all over the place. And there's no other reason. There's no other reason. Yes. You first introduce yourself because you were not here yesterday. And then you ask your question.
Thanks, sir, for the teaching. My name is Bishop P. I'm from Bebo and Company Limited.
Where?
Bebo and Company Limited.
Bebo?
Bebo Wine.
Oh, Bebo Wine.
Yes.
Oh, Bebo Wine.
So not to be here yesterday. I was traveling from Kampala, but I'm so delighted to be here. Now the question is, I've seen there are a lot of fines, and at the same time, some good years of imprisonment, like 7 years, 10 years, I've seen 2 years. Now the question is direct like this, that supposing you want to buy, like, okay, accidentally, you forgot, like, taking some medication that you were supposed to do, and now the judge is asking you to go for imprisonment maybe for, let me say, 10 years, but now you just want to buy it in terms of money. Is it allowed?
The people who draft the law, they draft the law so that it is fair to everybody. The law has to be fair to everybody. Otherwise, those with the money will just be buying. So the law, the penalties are made to make you think twice whether you have money or whether you don't have money. You need to think twice, because it is our health that is being compromised. It is our environment that is being compromised. So even those with money, they have to be made to think twice. So the way the law is written is, you will be fined and subjected to prison for up to so many years. Otherwise, all the rich people would be just buying their way. And yet they are the ones who produce the money, by the way. So no, you cannot buy the years and say, instead of going for 7 years, let me add you 1 billion more. No, not possible. Okay, as we wait for more questions, I'm going to ask our visitor to greet us. I will not introduce him, but he's your major stakeholder here. He's the one you have been waiting for. Although yesterday we discussed most of the Nema operational related issues, I'm sure that information will be shared with him. But if you have 2 or 3 main ones that come to your mind after he has introduced himself, I may allow those 2 or 3 before we go now and look into the regulation. I think we agreed that we may end around midday, so let us see. We have also asked the hotel to prepare an early lunch so that it doesn't happen like yesterday when we get very late. So without much ado, Doctor, I will not say your name, I will leave you to say that. Or I can say it. This is Dr. Achaya Innocent. He's from Nema headquarters. He's the boss of chemicals in the entire country. But I will leave him to introduce himself properly and greet you. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As he has said, my name is Innocent Achai. I head the Division for Chemical Safety, Radiation and Pollution Prevention, which is in the Department of Environmental Compliance at Nema. And I couldn't be here yesterday. I had a similar engagement in Fort Cotton with the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. They also have a parallel session dealing with the Toxic Chemicals Act. Yes. And so they have a chemical safety and security program that they are running. I was also giving my presentation there. With your good friend, Oyana, yes. Otherwise, glad to meet you all, and I hope that you are enjoying the sessions. Sometimes they can be a little bit very technical, but Andrew here tries to break them down and simplify for everyone to understand. He is the brain behind the regulations on hazardous chemicals, and I am glad that we still have him moving around the country with him to educate people on the provisions of this particular regulation. So we are preparing the ground for the regulatory framework to take effect. And just to update you, the technical committee is already in place, and they will soon begin their work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor, and you are welcome. Any questions before we go into the annexes, the schedules of the regulation? the fines, the penalties, the reporting. But by the way, meeting the requirements of this regulation are very simple. Are very, very simple. So you shouldn't be scared. You just have to have proper supervision. Because if you leave your workers, you know how our workers be. They don't follow procedures, they want to cut corners. So if you have good supervision and good procedures, there shouldn't be a problem. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, James, and good morning, everyone. I work for the district government. Whereas we appreciate how much work you are doing to simplify the content to us, individual differences also persist, but also looking at the broader community, I feel like there is need for such regulations to be translated into local languages, because an issue pertaining chemicals is nearly the probability of one endangering the lives of the people. So I feel like having the regulation translated into local languages for various regions would make it a good move for very many people to understand the risks and also to report any suspected risks, whether during transportation, use, and or trading in the chemicals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that is a very critical point that we have taken on board, and it is very important in order to have this information disseminated to everybody. So yes, we have taken that on board, translating of the regulations and the guidelines into the various local languages, but also simplification and using as much diagrams and pictograms as possible to enable uptake of the logos. I think that is very key. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Facilitator. Right from yesterday, we have learned a lot. And you rightly said that profession is the first line of defense. My appeal is that this engagement should really bring all the stakeholders on board before the enforcement rollout is done. One, we have a sector that is picking up in the country, especially in West Nile. That is the artisanal mining sector. And we have been made to know that there is a lot of mercury that is being used in that process. And my appeal to members that can also think of bringing this sector up in terms of taking these services of engagement to the districts, because the districts are working with this sector and it is new, but we also realize we saw yesterday is one of the extremely hazardous chemicals. So my appeal is that can we factor in the aspect of artisanal mining in relation to the community engagement also?
Absolutely. Another good proposal is to also extend this to specific sectors that are known to be handling these hot chemicals like mercury. Yesterday we saw that mercury is one of those chemicals that are being regulated because we also sign up to an international instrument, the Nema Convention, that requires us to do certain things within a certain timeline in respect of mercury. So I think that point is also well taken. and it fits in, also ties in with the one of translating, because you will find that most of the people involved actually in the artisanal mining may understand the local languages better than English, including the need to simplify these regulations so that such people are able to uptake and understand. Yes?
Thank you so much, Andrew and James, for this presentation. For me, my concern is on the areas of how the communities are going to understand these regulations. As we said before, that it should be translated in the local languages, but also there are other chemicals that I feel, I don't know whether they can be translated in the different local languages, but I would propose that if there is a mechanism that Nema can use maybe to conduct awareness question, not only for the key actors or maybe the industries involved or companies involved in the that maybe are using these chemicals, but also the community, because at the end of the day, the results or maybe the effect will affect the community. Like for instance, the accident that happened in Kampala where the truck fell down and the community went to go and get the fuel because they were not aware of the impact of that maybe of their action. I think it led them to go maybe go to that accident point and try to get those fuel. I think at the end of the day, I still believe that if we conduct continuous awareness, I believe we are going to regulate this and also comply with the regulation. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It ties in very well with the previous two, focusing on the communities as well, who are the primary stakeholders, because that's the only way you will have this awareness that will enhance the safety. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry for getting back once again. Throughout your presentation from yesterday, I saw you tackle a lot on let me call the production of the chemicals, the manufacturing, then transportation, storage. But there is this aspect which I feel is also critical, especially as regards safety and health of our ecosystem, of the environment. The influence from the growing factories. Like in Lira here, we have very, very many agro-processing factories, most of which are effluents are discharged to the wetlands. And the only the biggest wetland surrounding the city is Okwara wetland, which has been destroyed over years. Even before the so many factories were established, we had molasses from the sugar factories being imported here. And there was a high level of, I think around mid-2000, there was a very high level of processing of molasses in the municipal there and being traded between Kirkuk, Joli sub-region and Kamboja sub-region. And so the physical status of the wetland was degraded very seriously. We used to have crested cranes, our symbol, national symbol. The crested cranes used to be in large numbers around the wetland, but nowadays they are not seen. You can only see them when you go as far as Iteko in a rice field, but around Okale wetland, which surrounds the city here now, you hardly see one. It can even take you 2 or 3 years without seeing a crested crane, let alone the other species of animals, birds, and even plants. The flora and fauna has really been degraded greatly. I feel like there is a gap in this regulation, not looking at the difference coming from the factories.
Okay, to answer that one, I want to allay your fears. There is no gap. It is just that the language used, we haven't used effluent. We have used disposal. Because we are looking at the entire life cycle of the chemical. From manufacture, importation, transportation, storage, use, disposal. In disposal there is where you have the effluents, the solid waste, and the rest.
But much of the penalties and what we are focusing on the other areas, leaving out that one, I think that is the most common.
No. When you get the regulation, you see that, of course, my presentation was a high-level summary, but those penalties, they cut across. Even though you are just storing and you fail to keep records, those penalties get you. If you are disposing either through effluent or what, and you don't meet the effluent standards for discharge, it gets you. Okay, so now it is 11.
Question.
Yes, there's a question here.
Yeah, thank you. My question is to do with the compliance. And you know that for our environmental compliance, we have consultants or consulting companies that are licensed by Nema. So my question is, for this chemical compliance, industrial chemicals, these consultants also competent to do this, or we shall need to look to other consultants in this field because some of the business entities do not have the time or the capability to follow the stringent compliance steps. So there are consulting companies that are ready to take up this kind of job.
The quick answer is yes. There are consulting companies that have that competence. Of course, they have to demonstrate. You'll see when we're going through one of the schedules, there's a requirement to have competent people on board. And when you submit your application for a license, you need to attach their qualifications. So that technical committee reviews all that, their qualifications, to see if they're there. So there are two ways of doing it. If you have an industry factory that is using, manufacturing, repackaging chemicals, either you recruit a competent individual with a background in chemistry and that, or one of these companies, they are on your pay. You pay them to address and manage that area, which would be more expensive. You really need somebody physical there every day, because that's what so. You need to keep daily records, accurate daily records, and all that monitoring. Okay, so we are going to go quickly and look at the key annexes. The key annexes in the regulation. Let's see. Public health chemicals are also being regulated under a different act. These acts are not under Nema. The act that is under Nema is for industrial chemicals. The National Environment Act is the one that speaks to industrial chemicals. So the scope, the enforcement of these regulations by Nema and stakeholders is only limited to this. So Nema will not go to an agrochemical shop that is selling pesticides and ask for records under this act. That is out of the jurisdiction. But Nema is a member of the Agricultural Chemicals Board. And the Agricultural Chemicals Board regulates all these agro chemicals. And Nema is there for a very important reason, as well as other representation from other ministries, departments, and agencies, because there is need for collaboration, interagency collaboration at the end of the day. So maybe Nema, represented on the Agricultural Chemicals Board, may influence them to pick up some good ideas from this Industrial Chemicals Act that they are implementing. So that has to be clear. This is really for the industrial chemicals. Now, the schedules, I told you, Schedule 1 is just talking about the currency points. Schedule 2 is where you have all the prohibited chemicals. So if you are looking for chemicals that you should not be dealing with at all, they are under Schedule 2. The more interesting schedule that I want us to dwell on is Schedule 5, but we will get there. Schedule 3 are those chemicals that are restricted. They need extra authorization. And these ones, especially those ones that fall under the prior informed consent procedure. You cannot send to another country unless that country sends you a formal yes, we accept. In the same way, they cannot send to us unless, as Uganda, we say yes, we accept those chemicals to come. So that is Schedule 3. And these schedules are living documents, because as I said, most of these chemicals come through the international agreements that we have signed, and every year those chemicals that are subject to action are being updated. When they update there, we come and update our regulation as well. Schedule 4 is about how to classify hazardous chemicals. Okay? We said there are 3 main groups. Physical, those that pose physical hazards. They can be explosive, they can catch fire easily as gases or liquids or solids even. Some self-react. There are certain chemicals, if you just place them in air, they combust. How many of you did chemistry? In O level? All of you are biologists. One of the first experiments after you have learned about the Bunsen burner, but all of you, chemistry was mandatory in S1. You used to dodge those classes. S1 was for chemistry. S1 chemistry. After learning the Bunsen burner, there is a chemical they show you that combusts on exposure to air. None of you remember that one. Okay, I will not disturb you with that one, but there are those chemicals. If you just expose it to air like this, it starts burning. Okay? Those are self-reactive substances and others. So these are the physical. Then there are those chemicals that fall under health hazards. Okay? There are those chemicals that fall under health hazards, and they present various hazards. They can be corrosive. Most acids are corrosive, can irritate your skin, damage your eye if exposed to the eye, affect your respiratory system, change how your cells are arranged in your body, which is really a big thing. Can cause cancer, affect whether you can reproduce, target specific organs. There are chemicals that just target specific organs like the liver and just destroy the liver, or the kidney and destroy the kidney. Those are specific target organ toxicity. There's a category that just does that. Those that affect your breathing. And then there are those, the third group are the environmental hazards. They fall under environmental hazards. So those ones that kill any living organism in water, they're hazardous to the aquatic environment. There are those that damage the ozone layer, the ozone-depleting substances. Okay? And so on and so forth. Now, when you come to Schedule 5, this is where the forms are, where you are applying. So if you are applying, and this is one form for everything. We didn't want to have very different forms. So it's one form for everything, you just tick what is applicable. So this is the form that will be available. It is completed in triplicate, meaning 3 copies. So it can either act for a form to apply for the registration of chemicals, which I said is going to take a while before we start doing that. But when you're applying for a license, you use the same form. When you're applying for renewal of a license, we said the license is for 2 years. So by month 18, you should be applying for renewal of a license, okay? So there is an application reference number, and depending on what you want, if you are doing one or more of these things, you tick. If you are an industry, you are definitely going to be, because as Uganda we don't produce that many industrial chemicals. We actually import most or nearly all of the industrial chemicals that we use. But like I told you, that is going to change when the refinery starts in the Alberta. But as of today, we import almost everything. So if you are a factory, you are an industry, and you are using these chemicals in your process, chances are that you are importing these chemicals. And so when you are applying for a license, you have to apply for a license to import. You are going to tick import. Of course, you are going to store. You tick store. You are going to manufacture. You tick manufacture. Maybe you are not formulating. You may not be repackaging. You are using. You tick use. So you don't need one license for each of these. You can have a license for all these in one. Okay? And then general information, we need to know who you are, your name, if you are a company or a certificate of incorporation or registration is required. As usual these days, the TIN number, your physical address, telephone number, email address. Now this is very key. The location of the facility. You provide the district, the county, the sub-county, the parish, the village. If you are a resident of that area, all this information you find behind your national ID. If you don't know your parish, if you don't know your village or what. Okay? If you're already in business and you have a trading license, you attach a copy of that trading license. Okay? And then, this is what we were talking about. qualifications and experience of the applicant or their agent. Many times it will be the agent, because normally the businessman is not a chemist. So they need that agent, the chemist, who will be in charge of chemical management. So that means you need to employ or have a contract with a company that has these people with these qualifications and experience. So you describe and attach the supporting documents. Then, of course, now you start talking about the chemicals that you want to bring in or to use. You define them in various ways. All chemicals have a specific number called a CAS number that is assigned to them. So all chemicals, like we people, they have a TIN number. Their TIN number is called a CAS number. So you will not find the chemical, you will not find 3 chemicals with the same number. In the same way, you cannot find 2 people with the same national ID number. The national ID number is unique to the individual. In the same way, the CAS number is unique to the chemical. And then the trade name. Yesterday we were looking at the technical name, the IUPAC name. So you have to give all those names. There is a trade name, a common name, but you also have to give the structural formula. So this is where now you need the people who understand chemistry. Structure, formula. If it's a mixture of chemicals, you indicate the composition. Okay? For customs purposes, all products have what they call an HS code. This is for customs purposes. So even chemicals, they have HS codes, but not individual, but under groups. If it is acids, there will be an HS code for acids, and that kind of thing. So, if the HS code is known, that is also required. Then you tell us, if you are importing, where are you going to pass this chemical to come into Uganda? Is it coming through Katuna? Is it coming through Pondwe? Is it coming through Entebbe Airport? And then remember, the regulation has told us the places, the only places you can pass this chemical. So you need to have visibility of the regulation. We shall see those places in another schedule. It is a schedule here. Then you need to tell us the quantity of the chemical, why you are bringing the chemical, how you are going to transport it. Is it by road? Is it by air? Is it by ship? Is it by border? So how you are going to transport it, the handling, and how you are going to store it. How it is packaged. Yesterday we were talking about good packaging for chemicals. Okay? How it is packaged. You have to explain the nature of the packaging. How long the chemical can be in use before it expires. The shelf life is important, so that when the thing expires, you know it has to be disposed of. But also, Nema will be keeping an eye on this, because it is getting your annual reports to be able to see you have used so much of a chemical. You imported 5,000 tons, you have used 3,000, it is now expired. What have you done with those 2,000, the expired balance? So, measures for containment of leakage, the take-back mechanism for packaging and expired chemicals, how you propose to dispose of expired and unused chemicals. Okay, then there is another part where you are importing hazardous chemicals. If now it is not something you are just manufacturing, but you are importing, we have been talking about the prior informed consent procedure. So tell us the country it is coming from, who is supplying, where you are taking it, or sometimes you are exporting, same thing. The chemical name, where the country is going, who is going to receive it the other side, okay? Evidence of the other country agreeing that the chemical is allowed to go there. That is the prior informed consent procedure. You also have to attach that evidence. Normally it's in form of a formal official letter. Okay? And so many other things go into there. If you are just applying for storage, you need to provide the exact location of the storage, the layout and design of the facility, ventilation measures, suitability. They will be looking at the type of floor you are using, details of the chemicals, quantities, labeling, and so many things. And then if it is restricted chemicals, those are from Annex 3. There's a lot of information that is required. So you fill in there. And then final provisions, okay? If, for example, you are applying for a renewal of a license, you attach the expiring license, a copy. You attach an audit report as evidence of prior compliance. Confirmation of security, financial security, because of the issues we are talking about. Something like a bank guarantee is needed, or insurance, etc. And then of course you sign, you give us your name and contact information. Okay? So there are a few notes here which we discussed yesterday. If it is a renewal, you have to apply 60 days before the renewal. And this form is submitted in triplicate. So there is a part where the bid agency makes comments. This may be Nema, or Nema may send it to a district or city. So they make comments on there. If their comments from the public are gained, they are put there. And then of course, for each application there is a fee. We shall see what the fees are, but you have to indicate how much you have paid, and so on and so forth. And then, as we saw yesterday, this full application is then sent to the technical committee, who review and then give the executive director Nema either the go ahead, yes, you can license, or no, we require additional information like this and like this, or no, we are not licensing because of X, Y, Z. And that may be because it is located right next to a swamp, or adjacent to a hospital, or a school. It can be for any reason. That is. So that is the Form 1. Then Form 2 relates to formulating and repackaging. Again, nearly the same information on that. It's a bit shorter. You fill in all this information. Trade name, active ingredients, and all that. Okay? Licenses, you cannot transfer from one person to another. Okay? Because the license is given on a lot of information, including personal information. So whoever, if you sell your business, the one who has bought your business has to apply himself for a license, because he may not have the money and things like that. You can apply to vary a license. Yesterday we saw there are instances where you can change conditions in the license. So that is, the form is there, you just answer everything there, whatever they have said you attach, you sign and send it. If you are sending chemicals outside of Uganda, all transboundary movement of hazardous chemicals, there are special requirements that must be met. You must obtain permission from whoever you are sending the chemicals to, and there are forms that are filled and other information that should be submitted. So you need consent of the other country, the designated national authority of the country to which you are sending, as well as from every country that this chemical will transit. So if Rwanda is sending a chemical to Egypt, Uganda has to consent that yes, this chemical can pass Uganda. South Sudan has to consent. Sudan has to consent. Then eventually it reaches Egypt. Because anything can happen during transportation. So each of those countries needs to be sure. So there is a movement document that is filled that gives information on the exporter, on the importer, the type of packaging, okay? If you are using motor vehicles, the registration numbers or whatever, description of the chemicals, and so many things. And customs that mans the borders has a role to play. So there are places where customs has to sign as well. Schedule 6, these are the fees. How much does it cost? To get a license, you need to apply for a license, so there is an application fee. The application fee is 100,000 Uganda shillings. Then, if it's a license to import, you pay 800,000. If it's a license to manufacture or formulate, you pay 800,000. If it's a license to repackage, store, use, you pay slightly less, 500,000. Export, 500,000. Transboundary movement, 500,000. These fees actually cover the administrative costs of processing the application. We saw that to process the application, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but also you have this technical committee that has people drawn in from various MPAs. They need to be facilitated as they review all this, so there are all those issues. So these are the costs related to getting a license. Schedule 7, these are what a bank guarantee would look like. So if you want to get a bank guarantee from your bank, you go with a copy of this to the bank and they use this format. This is really the bank saying this person, we know him, he is liquid enough. We guarantee that we can even extend to him some money if there's any issue. Okay? The liability is indicated. So that is what a bank guarantee looks like. Schedule 8, and now these pictograms that we have been seeing and that should be on each of the labelings of the containers. These are self-explanatory. I don't know whether any of you looked at a truck as you were going yesterday or coming. these fuel trucks in order to identify any disease. But all of them are given here. If you see this picture, you know that the substance is corrosive, normally acidic. This one is telling you acute toxicity. It impacts you immediately. Dangerous. This one, exclamation mark, it impacts the skin, the eyes. It is immediate, acute. It also impacts your breathing, but also the ozone layer. If you see this mark on a product or a truck, if you see this one, run very far, very far away. Because this one is a health hazard and a very bad one. It causes cancer, it changes your genes, it affects reproduction. You look for children and you never get them. It targets specific organs. This is where people now get liver cancer, cancer of the pancreas, because chemicals have selectively targeted those organs. This other one, environment, it impacts on the aquatic environment especially. Now Schedule 9 is telling you if you are to import a chemical, you can only use these entry clearance points. Malaba, Busia, Pondwe, Kaduna, Entebbe. This is the airport in the Albertine, in Hoima, Mutukula, Port Bell, Miramai, Zeleku, Goli, Vura, Kampala, Jinja, Mbarara, and these days under the single customs territory, you can clear even at Mombasa or at Dar es Salaam. You can pay taxes when your goods are still there and you just come. Of course, under Kampala you have so many ICDs, Speda, Kenfright, and all those under Kampala, and very many ICDs. And Jinja, Barara also has 1 or 2 ICDs. So the regulation is saying it is only through these areas, these entry points or clearance points, that you can bring chemicals. So if you are coming through Ishasha, the Ishasha border point in the west, customs will tell you, these chemicals, you cannot clear them from here. Go and pass Bondway, or go north and pass Goli Uvura. So you need to plan your importation with this in mind. Otherwise, you reach a border point and they tell you, these ones we cannot clear. Okay? Because the inspectors who are going to be overseeing this, Uganda, we have about 180 clearance points, many of them within the country, but they are as diverse as that. And that would mean at each of them you also have an inspector. That is 180 inspectors. Those are just too many. So that is why this was limited as such. Schedule 10 is the reporting format. I told you there's a template that is given. This is for the annual reporting. So this is the kind of information that is captured and expected to be submitted. Okay? And that is really how the regulation is. That is the end of the regulation. As we had discussed yesterday, I had asked that Nema emails to each one of us a copy of this regulation, but also a copy of the guidelines, so that you can now go back within your time now and look through the regulation to better understand it, to start preparing either as someone who is regulated or someone who has the mandate to inspect. You can already start, even if you are a gazetted inspector at the district or city level, you can already start generating your inspection checklist based on what is here, but also what is in the guidelines. The guidelines give a little more explanation, and that is why I really want them to be shared with all of you. We have taken your comments, very important comments. The sensitization should not only look at the high-level people, those who own the industries and the factories, but also the communities. And also very important that we need to translate these documents into the local languages and even simplify them with a lot more diagrams and things like that in order to promote compliance as part of the compliance promotion. So I think I'm going to stop here now. It is 20 minutes to midday. I promised we will be done by midday, and I'm hoping that by midday the lunch will be ready. I see our colleagues who were at QFM are back, and they have come at the right time when we are winding up. But I thank you very much for being attentive, for all your questions. I want to pass the mic to the moderator who has just walked in. But we have gone through what was left. We had some very good interactions, some very good suggestions about the need to translate these documents to local languages, about the need to not only engage these people in high government offices, but also the communities, the community level. Yes, so I think you're welcome again.
Thank you.
You can also tell us how successful you were at the radio station, the kind of questions you were asked, but I hand over the session back to you now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our facilitator, I think we shall start by saying Asante Sana. That is to the facilitator, but we are not forgetting that the participants have played a very critical role. We need another hand clap for the participants. Asante Sana. Thank you so much, our facilitator, for really taking the members through this. I also want to welcome our Assistant Commissioner. You're welcome. We had a very nice interaction at QFM, and the questions that the listeners were asking were very pertinent. Issues to do with where do they get a list of the prohibited, the hazardous chemicals, how do we, get this information locally here. So for us, honestly speaking, your presence here is important because you are the ambassadors, and then, as you already know, Nema cannot work alone. Nema works with the lead agencies, and without you, Nema cannot deliver the mandate. So I want to appreciate you so much, and whatever discussions we need to have further, we can take further discussions from here if there are issues that are glaring, like already the facilitator said. I think that is very, very important. For us, as Nema, we appreciate this interaction, this training so much. We want to say thank you so much. I think based on the program now, I'm looking at the plenary discussion, of course, was done. I don't know whether evaluation was as well done. Maybe that would be one of the things we should be delving to. Just a moment. So I remember very well we had our expectations when we were beginning. We want to tick off our expectations. If they have been met, that is a very good evaluation. And we shall not go very, very far. Expectations. So, one of our expectations was to understand the methodology, aim, and analysis. My colleague was taking these notes. I think somewhere, I just need you here. When we say understand the methodology, aim, and analysis, it is incomplete. I think here, understand the methodology, aim, and analysis of the regulations. To understand the methodology, aim, and analysis of the regulations, were different ideas.
Take her through.
All right. Our first expectation was to
Move to the next one now.
The second one was to understand how the sampling and the selection criteria of the samples, all the chemical samples for analysis. That was the second expectation. So, and I don't know how we have gotten to understand how we can sample, collect samples and different types of samples which we can use in analysis. The third expectation was to
What has happened? You're failing to see your...
So it also was similar to the first one, discussing about the different identities in the aim and methodology. The different identities.
So it's more like repeated,
Yeah, more of identifying the methodology, the aim and methodology of the regulations, more like number one. And number four was also the aim, tools, and analysis, similar to number one.
data collection method.
Number five was about data collection, methods, and tools. I don't know if this was achieved in the discussions. Another one was the effective management of time.
Yes, I think yesterday time was managed well. Thank
Okay.
you for that. Integration of the tools
Of
and
tools.
linkage of finance
To aim, to the aim of the regulations. I don't know what the participant meant here. The linkage of finance to the aim of the regulation. What are the financial implications, I think, of these regulations?
Yes, I think they were mentioning, because if I picked it very well,
Yes.
they were mentioning now that we have the regulation, but how is it going to be supported in terms of financing? I think that's what I picked yesterday.
Also to learn integration of grants, What's this? I think this
These
is
are
our.
these are
These are our flowers.
I'm not
Okay, before that.
because I'm trying to link us there.
Yeah, this one.
Yes, these are the ones. You needed to have put the date here. Since this picture was here. Sorry, members. So you can see this is very clear. Health risks associated with chemicals and compliance guidelines, target persons on the dissemination at the district level. All this was clear yesterday.
Regulatory chemicals, this was discussed. Recommended chemicals in production. This was not discussed, but I think if you understand the restricted and prohibited chemicals, you can identify the recommended chemicals. And then how to handle the chemicals, and how Nema works with research agencies to ensure safeguards.
This was touched when we were talking about the lead agencies, working with the lead agencies.
Yes.
MAIF. So it was tackled.
Ecosystem damage due to chemicals. Now these are the impacts of chemical pollution, and the entities and institutions of focus on handling chemicals, where we identify that even the local government is very key in this, and why certain chemicals were banned. Yeah, we talked about the Minamata and other conventions, and how we are engaging with concerned teams.
Some of them were if you're filtering, I think we would have already.
So those are our
So then
expectations.
this was basically the institution, I mean the framework, the framework on how we come to the regulations. The facilitator was trying to explain how we came up to the regulations. He was trying to give us highlights. How do we reach the regulations? And it started from this side till this. So it was very clear.
Yes.
Is there something you feel you didn't understand from the? So let's say.
Thank you so much to our facilitator. Asante sana. So I think in terms of achievement, we have achieved the aim of our training. As a procedure, we shall invite the regional manager to speak to us, and then finally the regional manager will invite the assistant commissioner to help us as we close this day today here. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, colleagues. Good morning. Still morning, I hope. Yes, we've not been here with you in the morning, but we're doing the same thing, but on regular. So we're trying to reach a bigger group. So, otherwise, thank you for your attendance. We know the invitation was sent last week, and it is hard to get people to commit a day. There are so many things, political season. Many were telling me there is some swearing in that is happening, so they have to take part in it. But you make time, and that shows that you're committed to the cause. So if there is one thing that you should leave this workshop with, some of the things are very technical. As our kind facilitator has really gone through tables, showing us the whole regulation. You may not understand all of that at once, but when you get the regulation, take your time and look at them. Some of us are from industries, we are environment people there. Some of us are in agencies. So you're the ones to disseminate this information. So as you live here, you, in simple terms, know there is a regulation on chemicals, hazardous chemicals, for importing, storage, transportation, and disposal of those chemicals. So the question is, what role do you have to play? Yeah? That is what you should take away. Then when you get the regulation, you consolidate as you now continue reading and so on. I won't take much of your time because we've kept you here for 1.5 days. I take this opportunity, therefore, to invite my senior colleague, Assistant Commissioner, Dr. Achai. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much once again. The regional manager, Nema, who is now designated as Assistant Commissioner, I think this month, received communication from top management that all managers at Nema are now designated as Assistant Commissioners. Yes, all division heads. And manager and senior managers who are department heads are now commissioners. So we are aligning with the ministry structure. I think we have always had some issues whenever we go to some of these high level meetings. You find the senior manager representing the ED and the senior manager is not recognized by most structures in government. But anyway, aside from that, my fellow commissioners, my good friend here is at the level of commissioner, if we are to follow that structure. Yes, Andrew. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am very glad, I'm very happy to be with you this day in Lira. It's a good city. I suppose that you have enjoyed the city. I think the weather is very good. Yes, it is not very hot, neither is it very cold, just very conducive. Although also very conducive for the tropical diseases. I hope that we are taking the necessary precautions against Ebola. It is sad to note that Nema has postponed the World Environment Day, which was to take place on the 5th of next month in Germany. I think it's all because of this Ebola. And my good friend Iklai was the one heading that program. I suppose a new date will be announced in the future. Yes. As you are all aware, the role of Nema is really to coordinate environmental programs. And we coordinate as the regulators. A lot of activities have an impact on the environment. And specific to this is the role that chemicals play on a day-to-day basis. Chemicals management, what we talk about here is sound management of chemicals, meaning that proper handling of chemicals plays a big part in development. Chemicals are used literally to make so many products that aid our development. We cannot do away with chemicals. On a daily basis, we all interact with substances that contain chemicals. In the morning when you wake up, you interact with soap, you interact with a Colgate, that's one of the brands. What else do you interact with? Perfumes. All these contain chemical components, and they are manufactured through industrial processes. That means that the proper handling is key. And given that the country is now diversifying so much, the last manifesto for His Excellency the President was anchored on the industrialization. It means that we have to prepare ourselves to effectively manage the chemicals, because as the country undergoes transformation in the industrial sector, we all have to align ourselves. And given that we still have many industries that are coming up, we have the petroleum industry that is taking shape. I think the first oil should be in July. Yes, there are so many chemical products that will be manufactured. The nuclear industry is also coming up. And just to interest you, I think we are building a powerful, one of, I think the first of its kind in East Africa, a nuclear research facility in one of the, is it Sorority University? Yes. So you will find that interaction with chemicals, and some of these chemicals are radiative in nature, if you realize. So we need to look at how do we effectively manage them from the time when we extract them, for instance, through the production processes, to the time when we utilize the products, the entire life cycle, what Andrew has been talking about. Okay? Very, very important. If you look at, for instance, a plastic is made of what? Hydrocarbons, not so? From the petroleum industry. Now, after we have taken the water, what do we do with the waters? We need to effectively manage the waste that comes out of the plastics. That's just an example. So I am very happy that we have learned how to manage risks, to assess and manage risks through the 2-day program. We have also learned a lot of the regulatory framework dealing with chemicals, hazardous chemicals management in the country. And as Nema, who is charged with this responsibility, we shall be interacting with you government officials. You know that each municipality has a designated industrial area, not so? And so you will be having farms that manufacture these products. And I think we already have many of them. So once you have the knowledge, you can share the knowledge with them. You are definitely our good ambassadors to enable government to regulate the activity of effectively handling the chemicals in the country. I am very glad that we are here. I hope that the story on chemicals management has been heard out effectively. As the presenters have made you know, that chemicals management doesn't have one house in the country. We have chemicals that are handled by the Ministry of Agriculture, the pesticides. We have chemicals that are handled by the Ministry of Gender, and that particular act is the Toxic Chemicals and Prohibition Act that deals with chemical weapons. And then we have chemicals that are also handled mainly by in the industrial sector, and this is regulated by Nema. I hope that you get the entire picture. When you, and Nema will build a database of all these chemicals that are used in the industrial sector, and we hope that as we get new chemicals, we shall be able to add them to this register, so that at any one time, we are sure of what we are handling. And if there is something new which comes into the country, then we can certainly rush very fast to see how we can effectively control it. So the goal really is to protect us, the human health, to protect our environment with all its components against the adverse effects that could arise because of the mishandling of these chemicals. So I am glad that you have turned up in very good numbers, and I hope that we shall play a key role in this particular sector. From Nema and management, we thank you very much, and we hope that we shall continue to be good stakeholders, ambassadors, and good partners in the strive towards a clean and healthy environment for all of us. I thank you for God and my country.
Asante sana.
And with these few remarks, I declare the workshop closed.
Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Assistant Commissioner, for the remarks. Now, if you want to access the notes,
Kindly somebody touch there.
there is a picture.
You can scan this with your phones and you're able to access the notes. I don't know if we are all compliant, ICT compliant. Where you get a challenge, seek support from the neighbor, but also we have the team here that can support us. But the moment, if your phone has a scanner, because the phone has a scanner, you just scan this and it will take you, you'll be able to access the what? The notes of the day.
Yeah, you select the viewer as a viewer.
That is where technology has taken us, and we have to go by that. Madam Monica, would you like to say something?
Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you, the workshop has already been closed. The only additional information that I felt I needed to share